The bus pulled into Silver Creek, Montana at 3:47 in the afternoon, 3 hours late due to a snowstorm that had swept across the state. Noah Bennett pressed his forehead against the cold window, watching the small town materialize through the swirling white. One main street, a handful of buildings, more pickup trucks than passenger cars. This was going to be his home for the next 6 months. At 25, Noah had made plenty of questionable decisions, but leaving his comfortable graphic design job in Portland to take a temporary position as a ranch bookkeeper in rural Montana probably topped the list. His best friend Sierra had called him crazy. His mother had cried. His ex-boyfriend Marcus had laughed and said he'd be back in 2 weeks, begging for his old life. But Noah needed this. Needed the distance, the change, the chance to figure out who he was without the noise of city life drowning out his own thoughts. After his relationship with Marcus had imploded spectacularly, catching your boyfriend in bed with someone else will do that. Noah had felt unmoored, lost. He'd started applying for remote work positions in places as different from Portland as possible. When the job listing for Copper Ridge Ranch appeared, 6 months, room and board included, managing books and helping with administrative tasks, Noah had applied on impulse. He'd been shocked when they'd actually hired him based on a video interview and his portfolio of work. Now, stepping off the bus into the freezing Montana afternoon, Noah wondered if he'd made a terrible mistake. Noah Bennett. He turned to see a woman in her 60s approaching, bundled in a practical parka and boots. Her weathered face was kind, her eyes sharp and assessing. "Yes, that's me. Margaret Torres, I run Copper Ridge with my husband, Frank." She took his duffel bag before he could protest. "Welcome to Silver Creek, hope the trip wasn't too rough." Just long, Noah followed her to an older model Jeep, grateful to escape the wind. "Thank you for picking me up." "No trouble at all, ranch is about 20 minutes outside town." Margaret started the engine and pulled onto the main road. "Frank's looking forward to having someone who actually understands computers and spreadsheets. He's been trying to manage the books himself, and let me tell you, cattle ranching and Excel don't mix well." Noah smiled. "I'll do my best to help." "That's all we ask." Margaret glanced at him. "I'll be straight with you, ranch life is different from city life. It's hard work, long hours, and pretty isolated, but there's also something special about it, something real. You give it an honest chance and it might surprise you." "I'm hoping it will." They drove through increasingly rural landscape, the road climbing into foothills. Snow covered everything, broken only by dark lines of fence and the occasional cluster of cattle huddled against the cold. Noah watched it all with a mixture of trepidation and curiosity. Copper Ridge Ranch appeared gradually, first a gate, then buildings emerging from the white landscape. The main house was a sprawling 2-story structure that looked like it had been added onto multiple times over the years. Nearby stood barns, corrals, equipment sheds, and a few smaller buildings. "That's the bunkhouse where the ranch hands stay," Margaret pointed to a long, low building. "You'll be in the guest cottage. It's small but private, has its own bathroom and kitchenette. You'll take meals with us in the main house unless you prefer otherwise." "The cottage sounds perfect, thank you." Margaret parked near the main house. As Noah climbed out, stretching his stiff muscles, a man emerged from one of the barns. Even from a distance, Noah could tell he was tall, probably 6'2" or 6'3", and moved with the easy confidence of someone completely comfortable in their environment. "That's Wyatt Chen, our foreman," Margaret said. "Been with us for 8 years, best hand we've ever had. He'll show you around, introduce you to the rest of the crew." Wyatt approached, and Noah felt his breath catch. The man was striking, mixed Asian heritage evident in his features, with high cheekbones, dark eyes, and black hair just visible under his work-worn Stetson. His face was wind-burned, his hands gloved against the cold, his body layered in practical ranch wear. He looked like he'd been carved from the Montana landscape itself. "Wyatt, this is Noah Bennett, our new bookkeeper," Margaret made the introduction. "Noah Wyatt Chen." "Welcome to Copper Ridge." Wyatt's voice was deep and warm, his handshake firm but not crushing. His eyes, dark brown, almost black, studied Noah with open curiosity. "Long trip?" "Very long." Noah was acutely aware that he probably looked terrible, rumpled from travel, pale from city life, completely out of his element. "But I'm glad to be here." "Let me show you to your cottage, get you settled." Wyatt picked up Noah's bags before he could protest. "Then if you're up to it, I can give you a tour of the operation, or you can rest, whatever you prefer." "A tour would be great, actually. I'd like to see what I'm working with." They walked toward a small building set slightly apart from the others. Wyatt moved with a slight limp that became more noticeable the longer Noah watched, though he handled the bags easily enough. "You'll have privacy here," Wyatt said, unlocking the cottage door. "But you're close enough to the main house if you need anything. Meals are at 7 a.m., noon, and 6 p.m. If you miss one, there's always leftovers you can grab." The cottage was small but charming, one main room with a bed, a desk, a small seating area, and a kitchenette in the corner. A door led to a compact bathroom. It was clean, warm, and felt immediately welcoming. "This is perfect," Noah said honestly. "Really, thank you." Wyatt set down his bags. "You'll want to layer up before we head out. It's cold and we'll be walking around outside." He hesitated, then added, "I know this is probably pretty different from what you're used to, but give yourself time to adjust. It gets easier." Something about his tone suggested personal experience. "Have you always lived in Montana?" "No, grew up in California actually, Bay Area." Wyatt's expression was unreadable. "Came out here about 8 years ago looking for a change, found it." Before Noah could ask more, Wyatt was moving toward the door. "I'll give you 20 minutes to settle in, then come get you for the tour." After he left, Noah sank onto the bed, processing the last few hours. He was really here, in Montana, on a working cattle ranch, about to spend 6 months in a place where he knew no one and understood almost nothing about the way of life. And his new boss's foreman was possibly the most attractive man Noah had ever seen in person. Not helpful, Noah told himself firmly. You came here to heal and find yourself, not to develop a crush on a cowboy who's probably straight anyway. He unpacked quickly, changing into warmer clothes layers as Wyatt had suggested. He was just pulling on his inadequate city coat when there was a knock at the door. Wyatt had a proper ranch coat in his hands. "Borrowed this from the bunkhouse. Yours won't cut it out here." He helped Noah into it, several sizes too big but immediately warmer. "Ready?" They spent the next 2 hours touring the ranch. Wyatt showed him the main barn where they kept horses, the equipment sheds full of machinery Noah couldn't begin to identify, the feed storage, the cattle in various pastures. He explained the operation: 1,500 acres, 200 head of cattle, a small horse breeding program, hay production in summer. Wyatt was patient, never condescending, taking time to explain things in terms Noah could understand. He introduced Noah to the other ranch hands, 3 men who ranged from early 20s to late 50s, all of whom were polite if reserved with the new city guy. "The office is in the main house," Wyatt said as the sun began to set. "Frank will show you the books tomorrow. Fair warning, they're a mess. He's been trying to keep up, but it's not his strength." "That's why I'm here." Noah was shivering despite the borrowed coat. The Montana cold was different from Portland, drier but somehow more penetrating. "To fix the mess." Wyatt smiled and Noah felt warmth spread through his chest that had nothing to do with the coat. "You'll fit in fine. Come on, dinner's probably ready." Dinner in the main house was a loud, cheerful affair. Frank Torres was a bear of a man with a booming laugh and an obvious affection for his wife. The ranch hands joined them. Apparently this was normal for Copper Ridge, everyone eating together. They traded stories about the day's work, made plans for tomorrow, gave Noah grief about being a city boy in a way that felt more teasing than mean. Wyatt sat across from Noah, and their eyes met several times during the meal. Each time Noah felt that same flutter in his chest, the same awareness. This could be a problem. After dinner, exhausted from travel, Noah excused himself and returned to his cottage. He lay in bed listening to the unfamiliar sounds of a ranch at night, wind whistling through buildings, the distant sounds of cattle, the creak of old wood settling. He thought about Wyatt's hand on his shoulder when he'd helped him into the coat, the way Wyatt had smiled, the patience in his voice as he'd explained things Noah should probably already know. When the cowboy took my hand, Noah thought sleepily, remembering Wyatt's handshake. His heart had known something then in that first moment, he just wasn't sure what yet. Noah's first week at Copper Ridge was a blur of learning. The ranch's books were indeed a disaster, years of half-hearted record-keeping, missing receipts, estimates instead of actual numbers. But Noah loved a challenge and slowly, methodically, he began creating order from chaos. He worked in Frank's office, a cozy room off the main living area with a wood stove and a desk covered in papers. Frank would stop by periodically to answer questions, usually staying to chat for far longer than necessary. Noah quickly understood that Frank was lonely for conversation that didn't revolve around cattle prices and weather. "You're making amazing progress," Frank said one afternoon, looking over Noah's shoulder at the newly organized spreadsheet. "I can actually understand what I'm looking at." "That's the goal," Noah saved his work. "I should have the last 5 years fully organized within another week, then we can start looking at projections and budgeting." "Margaret was right to push for hearing you." Frank settled into the chair across from the desk. "I was resistant at first, didn't see why we needed someone from the city telling us how to manage our money, but you've been good for this place, good for the morale too." "How so?" Frank smiled knowingly. "The boys like you don't act superior even though you've got education and city polish. You ask questions instead of assuming you know everything, and Wyatt especially seems to have taken a shine to you." Noah felt heat rise to his face. "Wyatt's been very helpful, very patient with all my questions about ranch operations." "Wyatt's a good man, one of the best I've ever known." Frank's expression grew more serious. "He came here 8 years ago running from something, never said what and I never pushed, but whatever it was left scars. He's been closed off, keeping people at arm's length until you showed up." Noah didn't know what to say to that. "I'm just saying," Frank continued gently, "it's good to see him smiling more, coming to dinner more often instead of eating alone in the bunkhouse, actually engaging in conversation. You're good for him." After Frank left, Noah tried to focus on work, but his mind kept drifting to Wyatt. He'd noticed the changes Frank mentioned, the way Wyatt sought him out during the day, found excuses to show him things, lingered after dinner to talk. Noah had also noticed that Wyatt wore a rainbow bracelet on his right wrist, usually hidden under his sleeve but occasionally visible. He'd noticed the way Wyatt's eyes tracked him sometimes, with an intensity that made Noah's stomach flip. But he couldn't be sure. Montana ranch culture was different from Portland's open queer community. Even if Wyatt was gay, that didn't mean he was out, didn't mean he was interested, didn't mean Noah should risk making things awkward by assuming. That evening, Noah decided to take a walk before dinner. He needed to clear his head, get some air. He borrowed the ranch coat and headed out into the twilight. The cold was still shocking, but he was starting to adjust to it. The landscape was beautiful in a harsh, unforgiving way, all sharp edges and vast distances. Noah walked toward one of the corrals where several horses stood, their breath making clouds in the frigid air. "They're beautiful, aren't they?" Noah turned to find Wyatt approaching, carrying a bucket of feed. "Gorgeous, I've never been around horses much." "Want to meet them properly?" Wyatt set down the bucket and gestured for Noah to approach the fence. "This one's Juniper, she's the gentlest of the bunch." Wyatt called softly to the mare who came over, her breath warm against Noah's extended hand. Wyatt stood close behind Noah, guiding his hand to the horse's nose, showing him how to pet her correctly. Noah was intensely aware of Wyatt's proximity, the warmth of his body, the smell of leather and hay, and something uniquely him. When Wyatt's hand covered Noah's, steadying it against Juniper's neck, Noah stopped breathing for a moment. "You're doing great," Wyatt said softly. His voice was right next to Noah's ear, intimate in the gathering darkness. "She likes you." Noah turned his head slightly and found Wyatt's face inches from his own. Their eyes met, held. The moment stretched, full of possibility and tension. Then Juniper snorted, breaking the spell, and they both stepped back. Wyatt cleared his throat. "I should feed them, dinner will be ready soon." He moved away quickly and Noah stood there, his hand still tingling from where Wyatt had touched it. His heart was racing, his thoughts scattered. Something was happening between them, something real and undeniable. The question was, what were they going to do about it? 2 weeks into his stay at Copper Ridge, Noah was starting to feel like he belonged. He'd found his rhythm, mornings working on the books, afternoons often spent learning ranch tasks from whoever would teach him. He'd learned to feed horses, mend fences, even help with basic cattle care. His hands were getting calloused, his body stronger from physical work. But more than anything, he was spending time with Wyatt. It had become their routine. After dinner, Wyatt would find Noah and they'd walk together or sit on the porch of Noah's cottage talking until the cold drove them inside. They talked about everything: childhoods, families, dreams, fears. Wyatt opened up gradually, sharing pieces of his past. I was engaged once, Wyatt said one evening as they sat on the porch wrapped in blankets. To a woman named Jennifer. My parents were traditional and I was trying to be what they wanted, trying to be straight. Noah listened without interrupting, sensing this was important. I was 26, we were planning the wedding when I finally admitted to myself that I couldn't do it, couldn't marry her, couldn't keep pretending. Wyatt's voice was rough with old pain. I called it off 3 months before the wedding. She was devastated. My parents were furious. They said I was confused, going through a phase that I just needed to try harder. I'm sorry, Noah said softly. I came out to them that day, told them I was gay and had been my whole life. They didn't take it well. My father said I was no longer his son. My mother cried and said I was choosing a lifestyle that would lead to nothing but pain. Wyatt pulled the blanket tighter. I left California the next week, drove until I found a place that felt far enough away from all of it, ended up here. Do you talk to them now? No, they made it clear they didn't want contact. Part of me understands they grew up in a different time with different beliefs, but part of me will never understand how you can stop loving your child just because of who they love. Noah reached over and took Wyatt's hand. It was an impulse, offering comfort, but the moment their fingers touched, something electric passed between them. Wyatt looked down at their joined hands, then up at Noah's face. Noah, he said quietly, I need to tell you something. Okay. These past 2 weeks getting to know you, I haven't felt this way about someone in years, maybe ever. Wyatt's thumb stroked across Noah's knuckles. But I also know you're only here temporarily. 6 months and then you're gone, back to Portland, back to your real life. So I've been trying to keep my distance, trying not to let myself feel too much, but I'm failing spectacularly at that. Noah's heart was pounding. What are you saying? I'm saying I like you a lot more than I should after just 2 weeks. Wyatt met his eyes. I'm saying that every time I see you, I want to be near you. Every time we talk, I don't want it to end. Every time we touch, even accidentally, it feels like lightning. I feel that too, Noah admitted. Since the first day, since you shook my hand and I felt something, like recognition almost, like my heart knew something my head hadn't figured out yet. Wyatt smiled, soft and genuine. When I took your hand that first day, my heart knew too. They sat there in the cold Montana evening, holding hands, looking at each other. Then Wyatt leaned in slowly, giving Noah time to pull away if he wanted to. Noah didn't want to. He closed the remaining distance and their lips met. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, both of them testing the waters. Then Wyatt's free hand came up to cup Noah's face and the kiss deepened. Noah made a small sound, his fingers tightening on Wyatt's hand. They kissed until the cold became too much to ignore, until they were both shivering despite the blankets. When they pulled apart, both breathing hard, Wyatt rested his forehead against Noah's. I should probably go before we both freeze to death out here. Probably, Noah agreed, but neither of them moved. Noah, I want to be clear about something. Wyatt pulled back enough to look at him properly. I know you're only here for 6 months, I'm not expecting forever, but I'd like to see where this goes for however long we have, if that's something you want too. Noah thought about it. He'd come to Montana to heal, to find himself. He hadn't been looking for a relationship. But sitting here with Wyatt, their hands still intertwined, everything felt right in a way nothing had felt right in a very long time. I want that too, Noah said. I want to see where this goes. Wyatt's smile was brilliant. He kissed Noah again, quick and sweet this time. Good, that's really good. He stood reluctantly. I'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow, Noah agreed. After Wyatt left, Noah went inside and lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling, unable to stop smiling. He touched his lips, still tingling from Wyatt's kisses. He thought about Wyatt's words, when I took your hand that first day, my heart knew too. Something was beginning here, something that felt important, significant, potentially life-changing. Noah had no idea where it would lead, but for the first time in a long time, he was excited to find out. The next few weeks passed in a blur of happiness. Noah and Wyatt were careful around others, not hiding their relationship exactly, but not advertising it either. On a ranch where traditional values still held sway, they weren't sure how their relationship would be received. But in private, they were discovering each other. Stolen kisses in the barn, long conversations in Noah's cottage that stretched into the early morning, hands brushing as they worked side by side, the slow, delicious build of intimacy and trust. Tell me about your life in Portland, Wyatt said one evening as they lay together on Noah's bed, fully clothed but tangled in each other's arms. It had become their routine. After everyone else went to bed, Wyatt would come to Noah's cottage and they'd hold each other, talk, occasionally kiss until they were both breathless. "It feels like a different lifetime now," Noah admitted. "I had an apartment in Southeast, a job doing graphic design for a tech startup, a group of friends I'd go out with. It was fine, good even, but looking back it all feels kind of shallow, like I was playing a role instead of actually living." "What about Marcus, your ex?" Noah had told Wyatt about the relationship that had brought him to Montana. "I thought I loved him, now I think I was in love with the idea of him, the artist boyfriend, the passionate relationship. The reality was that he was self-absorbed and I was too accommodating. When I caught him cheating, part of me was almost relieved. It gave me an excuse to leave, to start over." Wyatt's arms tightened around him. "His loss is my gain." "Tell me about your life before you came here," Noah said. "Not the painful parts unless you want to, the good parts." Wyatt was quiet for a moment, thinking. "I loved California, the ocean especially. I'd spend hours just sitting on the beach watching the waves, and I had a good job. I worked as a marine biologist studying tide pool ecosystems. It was meaningful work, work I was passionate about." "How did you end up as a ranch foreman?" "After I left California, I needed work and I knew horses. My grandfather raised them. I spent every summer with him growing up. So I started working ranches, moving from place to place. Eventually ended up here. Frank and Margaret needed a foreman, I needed a place to land. It was supposed to be temporary, but," Wyatt shrugged, "it became home." "Do you miss the marine biology work?" "Sometimes, but this life has its own rewards. There's something honest about ranching. You work hard, you take care of the land and the animals, and you see direct results from your efforts. It's simple in a way science never was." They fell into comfortable silence, Noah's head on Wyatt's chest, listening to his heartbeat. "I'm falling in love with you," Noah said quietly. He hadn't planned to say it, but the words felt true, inevitable. Wyatt's breath caught, his hand came up to stroke Noah's hair. "I'm falling in love with you too, have been since that first day, I think." They kissed, slow and deep and full of promise. When they finally pulled apart, Wyatt's eyes were dark with want. "I should go," he said, though he made no move to leave. "Before I do something we might regret." "Would we regret it?" "No, but I want to take this slow, want to do this right." Wyatt kissed his forehead. "You're too important to rush." After Wyatt left, Noah lay awake thinking about the conversation. He'd told Wyatt his life in Portland felt shallow, and that was true. But more than that, he was starting to realize his life here, on this remote Montana ranch, felt more real than anything he'd experienced before. The question was, what did that mean for his future? He was supposed to leave in 4 months, go back to Portland, back to his old life or some version of it, but increasingly that plan felt wrong. He pushed the thought away. 4 months was a long time, anything could happen. At the 6-week mark, Noah went into Silver Creek for supplies. Wyatt offered to drive him and they made an afternoon of it, stopping at the feed store, the hardware store, grabbing lunch at the local diner. The diner was busy, full of ranchers and townspeople. Noah and Wyatt slid into a booth and Noah was acutely aware of the looks they were getting. 2 men, clearly comfortable with each other in a town where everyone knew everyone. "Does this bother you?" Noah asked quietly, "people seeing us together?" "No," Wyatt's voice was firm. "I'm done hiding who I am. If people have a problem with it, that's their issue, not mine." Their waitress was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a name tag that read Dottie. She took their orders efficiently, then paused. "You two are from Copper Ridge, aren't you? I heard Frank hired a city boy to do his books." "That's me," Noah said, "Noah Bennett." "Well, it's nice to meet you, Noah, and Wyatt, good to see you as always." Her eyes twinkled. "You boys want to share a milkshake? We make them real good here." It was such a blatant acknowledgement of what they were, delivered with complete acceptance, that Noah felt tears prick his eyes. "That would be great, thank you." After Dottie left, Wyatt reached across the table and took Noah's hand. "See, not everyone's going to be terrible about it." But not everyone was Dottie. As they left the diner, they passed a group of men outside the hardware store. One of them, a big, red-faced man in his 60s, called out, "Chen, that your boyfriend?" Wyatt's jaw tightened, but he kept walking. "Come on." I asked you a question, the man moved to block their path. You bringing faggots to Silver Creek now? Wyatt's entire body went rigid. Watch your mouth, Patterson. Or what, you'll what? Patterson stepped closer, his breath reeking of alcohol despite it being mid-afternoon. We don't want your kind here, bad enough you're taking up space on a good ranch but now you're bringing in more of. He didn't get to finish. Wyatt's fist connected with Patterson's jaw, sending the bigger man stumbling backward. The other men rushed forward and suddenly Noah was in the middle of a brawl in the middle of Silver Creek's main street. Someone grabbed Noah from behind. He twisted, trying to break free, and caught an elbow to the face. Pain exploded through his nose, blood streaming down. Then Wyatt was there, pulling Noah free, putting himself between Noah and the attackers. Enough. The voice cut through the chaos. Sheriff Tom Bradshaw, Noah recognized him from the diner, was striding toward them, hand on his weapon. Everyone back off, now. The men dispersed grudgingly. Patterson was on the ground, holding his jaw. Wyatt stood protectively in front of Noah, his knuckles bloody. Wyatt, Noah, you two all right? The sheriff looked genuinely concerned. We're fine, Wyatt said, though his voice was shaking with adrenaline. Patterson started it, called us, he used slurs. I heard, Patterson, you're spending the night in a cell to sober up. The rest of you, get out of here before I arrest you for public disturbance. The sheriff turned to Wyatt and Noah. You two should get that nose looked at, and Wyatt, you might want to ice those knuckles. They drove back to the ranch in silence. Noah held a towel to his nose, which had finally stopped bleeding. Wyatt's hands were tight on the steering wheel, his expression dark. I'm sorry, Wyatt said finally. I shouldn't have hit him, when he said that about you. Don't apologize for defending us, Noah said. You were protecting me, protecting both of us. Back at the ranch, Margaret took one look at them and immediately went into nurse mode. She cleaned Noah's face, the nose wasn't broken, thankfully, and bandaged Wyatt's split knuckles. Frank appeared, his expression thunderous when he heard what had happened. That Patterson's always been a mean drunk, Frank said, but this crosses a line, you two did nothing wrong. People are going to talk, Wyatt said quietly. About us, about the ranch hearing us. I don't want to cause problems for you and Margaret. Let them talk, Margaret said firmly. Your family, Wyatt, you've been family since the day you arrived here 8 years ago, and Noah, you're part of that family now too. Anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me. That evening, Noah and Wyatt sat on the porch of Noah's cottage, both wrapped in blankets against the cold. Noah's face ached and Wyatt's hand was swollen despite the ice. I've been thinking, Noah said carefully, about what happened today, about how public our relationship is going to be if we stay together. If, Wyatt's voice was sharp, you're thinking about ending this because of some bigoted asshole. No, I'm thinking about what it means for both of us, for you especially. You've lived here for 8 years, you have a life, a job, people who care about you. I don't want my being here to make that harder. Noah, Wyatt took his hand gently, mindful of both their injuries. I've spent 8 years hiding, being careful, not letting anyone get too close. I'm done with that. Yes, being with you openly means dealing with people like Patterson, but it also means actually living instead of just existing. I'll take the hard parts if it means I get to have you. What happens when my 6 months are up? Noah asked. The question had been looming between them for weeks. I don't know, Wyatt's thumb stroked over Noah's knuckles. But we have 4 months to figure it out. Can we just take it one day at a time, enjoy what we have instead of worrying about what happens next? Noah wanted to argue, wanted to plan and strategize. But looking at Wyatt, this strong, beautiful man who defended him today, who'd stood up for them both despite the consequences, Noah nodded. One day at a time. They kissed there on the porch, tender and careful of their injuries. And Noah thought about how much had changed in 6 weeks. How he'd arrived in Montana looking to escape his old life and instead had found something he'd never expected. He'd found home, he'd found love. The question was whether he'd have the courage to keep them. Winter in Montana was brutal in a way Noah had never experienced. The temperatures dropped below zero regularly. Snow fell in waves, sometimes trapping them at the ranch for days. The work became harder, breaking ice on water troughs, keeping animals fed and sheltered, maintaining equipment in conditions that froze metal and made simple tasks Herculean efforts. But Noah loved it. He loved the stark beauty of the landscape under snow, loved the satisfaction of hard physical work, loved the camaraderie of the ranch hands huddled around the wood stove trading stories. Most of all, he loved the life he was building with Wyatt. They'd become inseparable. Noah had essentially moved into Wyatt's room in the bunkhouse, though he kept his cottage for appearances' sake. They worked together during the day, ate together, spent their evenings wrapped around each other, talking and kissing and slowly, carefully exploring each other's bodies. "I want to make love to you," Wyatt murmured one night as they lay in his narrow bunk, their bodies pressed together under heavy quilts. "I want to be with you completely, but only when you're ready." Noah was more than ready. He'd been ready for weeks, but Wyatt's patience and care had made him fall even deeper in love. "I'm ready, I want that too." What followed was tender and intense and everything Noah had ever dreamed intimacy could be. Wyatt took his time, making sure Noah was comfortable, checking in constantly. When they finally came together, when Wyatt was moving inside him and their eyes locked in the dim light, Noah felt something fundamental shift in his chest. This was love, real, profound, life-changing love. Afterward, they lay tangled together, sweaty despite the cold room, both breathing hard. "I love you," Wyatt whispered against Noah's hair. "I love you so much it scares me." "I love you too," Noah turned in his arms. "I love you and I don't want to leave. When my 6 months are up, I don't want to go back to Portland." Wyatt went very still. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I want to stay here with you. I want to make Montana my home." The words tumbled out, urgent and honest. "I know it's crazy. I know I've only been here 3 months, but I've never been more sure of anything. Your job, your life in Portland, can be done remotely." Frank's already asked if I'd consider staying on permanently to manage the ranch's finances and help expand the business side. "And even if that doesn't work out, I can freelance. I have skills that translate anywhere." Noah cupped Wyatt's face. "I'm not giving anything up by staying. I'm choosing something better." Wyatt's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "You mean that?" "Every word." They made love again, slower this time, savoring each touch. And as Noah fell asleep in Wyatt's arms, he felt peace settle over him. He'd made his choice, now he just had to make it real. The next morning, Noah approached Frank and Margaret in their kitchen. "Can we talk about my contract and the possibility of staying on permanently?" Frank's face lit up. "You're thinking about staying?" "I am. I've been doing a lot of thinking and I want to make Montana my home, make Copper Ridge my home." Noah took a breath. "If you'll have me." "Have you?" Margaret laughed. "Noah, we were dreading the day you'd leave. You've transformed our business operations, helped expand our reach. Frank actually understands his own finances now. Of course we want you to stay." They spent the next hour discussing terms. Frank wanted to expand Copper Ridge's online presence, start selling beef directly to consumers, develop the horse breeding program into a real revenue stream. He needed someone who understood marketing, web design, and modern business practices. Noah was perfect for it. "The cottage is yours as long as you want it," Margaret said, "though we've noticed you've been spending most nights elsewhere." Her eyes twinkled knowingly. "We're not blind, Noah, and we're happy for you and Wyatt. You're good for each other." Noah felt relief wash over him. "You don't mind about us?" "Mind, honey, Wyatt's been alone too long. Watching him fall in love with you has been one of the joys of this winter." Margaret patted his hand. "Love is love. Anyone who says different can answer to me." That evening, Noah found Wyatt in the barn tending to one of the horses. "Got a minute?" "For you, always." Wyatt's smile was warm, intimate. "I talked to Frank and Margaret this morning about staying permanently. They said yes." Noah couldn't contain his grin. "I'm staying, Wyatt. I'm not leaving in 3 months. I'm staying here with you." Wyatt dropped the brush he'd been holding and crossed the barn in 3 strides, sweeping Noah into his arms. He kissed him deeply, thoroughly, putting every ounce of feeling into it. "You're really staying?" Wyatt asked when they finally broke apart. "I'm really staying. This is home now. You're home." They stood there in the barn, holding each other as snow began to fall outside, both of them grinning like idiots. The next few months weren't entirely smooth. Word spread through the community that Noah was staying permanently, that he and Wyatt were living together openly. Some people were accepting, like Dottie at the diner, who always greeted them warmly. Others were less kind. They lost some business. A few ranchers who'd worked with Copper Ridge for years suddenly found other suppliers. Some townspeople crossed the street when they saw Noah and Wyatt together. There were occasional ugly comments, hateful looks. But there was also unexpected support. The sheriff made a point of stopping by the ranch regularly, making it clear he was watching out for them. Several of the younger ranchers reached out to Frank, saying they respected his stance on inclusion. A few even confided their own stories, gay cousins who'd left for the cities, transgender children they were trying to understand and support. "Things are changing," Frank said one evening at dinner. "Slower here than in cities maybe, but they're changing. You and Wyatt being open about your relationship, that matters. It shows people that love is love no matter where you live." Noah threw himself into his work with Copper Ridge. He redesigned their website, set up online sales channels, created marketing materials that told the story of sustainable, family-run ranching. Orders started coming in from across the country. The ranch's profitability increased 20% in the first quarter. He also continued learning ranching skills. Wyatt taught him to ride properly, to rope, to work cattle. Noah would never be a natural cowboy, but he became competent, capable of handling himself in most situations. One spring morning, about 8 months after Noah's arrival, they were out checking fence lines when Wyatt's horse spooked at a rattlesnake. The horse reared, throwing Wyatt hard. He landed badly, his old injury, a rodeo accident from years before, flaring up. "Don't move," Noah said, dismounting quickly. "Where does it hurt?" "My back, same place as always." Wyatt's face was tight with pain. "I'm fine, just need a minute." But he wasn't fine. By the time they got back to the ranch, Wyatt could barely walk. The doctor in town confirmed what they'd feared: the fall had aggravated old damage. Wyatt needed surgery, followed by months of physical therapy. "I can't do the surgery," Wyatt said that night as they lay in bed. "The ranch needs me, especially now with spring calving starting." "The ranch needs you healthy," Noah countered. "And I'm here. Carlos can handle day-to-day operations and I can help with everything else. You're getting the surgery." It was one of their first real arguments, Wyatt stubborn and scared, Noah determined and practical. Finally, Frank intervened. "Boy, you're getting that surgery. That's an order from your boss." Frank's voice was firm but kind. "We'll manage without you for a few months. Your health is more important than any ranch work." The surgery was scheduled for late April. Noah took Wyatt to Billings for the procedure, stayed with him through recovery, brought him home when he was cleared to travel. For the next 3 months, Noah became Wyatt's caretaker, helping him with exercises, managing his pain medication, forcing him to rest when he tried to do too much too soon. It was hard. Wyatt hated being dependent, hated watching others do the work he felt was his responsibility. He was short-tempered, frustrated, sometimes taking his anger out on Noah. "I'm not a child," Wyatt snapped one afternoon when Noah insisted he couldn't go out to the barns yet. "Stop treating me like I'm helpless." "I'm not treating you like a child, I'm treating you like someone who just had major surgery and needs to heal." Noah's patience was wearing thin. "Your doctor said 8 weeks of limited activity, it's been 5. The ranch is fine, everyone is handling things. The calving went well, the fences are mended, the horses are thriving. You being injured hasn't destroyed anything." Noah took a breath, softening his voice. "But you pushing yourself too hard could destroy you, and I won't watch you hurt yourself because you're too stubborn to ask for help." Wyatt looked at him for a long moment, then his face crumpled. "I'm scared," he admitted. "What if I can't do the work anymore? What if I'm not useful? What if—" his voice broke. "What if you realize you don't want to be with someone who's broken?" "Oh, Wyatt?" Noah crossed the room and carefully pulled Wyatt into his arms, mindful of his healing back. "You're not broken, you're healing, and I love you, all of you, including the parts that hurt, the parts that struggle, the parts that need help sometimes." "I've always been the one who helps others," Wyatt said against Noah's shoulder. "I don't know how to be the one who needs help." "You learn, the same way I learned to work cattle and mend fences and survive Montana winters." Noah pulled back to look at him. "We take care of each other, Wyatt. That's what love is, letting someone see you at your worst and trusting they'll still be there." After that conversation, things got easier. Wyatt let Noah help without fighting it. He focused on his physical therapy, followed his doctor's orders, slowly regained his strength and mobility. By mid-July, he was cleared for light work. By August, he was back to full duties, though more careful about how he moved, more willing to ask for help when he needed it. "Thank you," Wyatt said one evening as they sat on the porch of what was now their cottage. Noah had officially moved his things into Wyatt's room in the bunkhouse, and they'd converted the cottage into a shared private space. "For taking care of me, for not giving up on me when I was being impossible. You do the same for me." In a heartbeat, Wyatt took his hand. "I love you, Noah. I love the life we're building together. I love waking up next to you every morning. I love that you stayed when you could have left." "There's nowhere else I want to be," Noah said honestly. "This is home, your home." A year after Noah's arrival at Copper Ridge, the ranch threw a celebration. Partly it was to mark the ranch's best financial year in a decade. Noah's business strategies had paid off in a big way. But it was also, unofficially, a celebration of Noah and Wyatt's relationship. People came from all over: neighboring ranchers, townspeople, the ranch hands' families. Dottie brought pies from the diner. The sheriff came with his wife. Even some people who'd been hostile initially showed up, offering tentative acceptance if not full approval. Frank stood up to give a speech, his voice carrying across the gathered crowd. "When we hired Noah Bennett last year, we thought we were getting a bookkeeper, someone to help us modernize our business practices. We got that and so much more. We got a man who threw himself into ranch life, who learned our ways while teaching us new ones, who proved that heart and determination matter more than where you come from." He paused, looking at Noah and Wyatt, who stood together near the barn. "We also got to watch two good men fall in love, and that's been a gift too. A reminder that love shows up in unexpected places, takes forms we might not anticipate, but is always worth celebrating." The crowd applauded, some enthusiastically, others politely, but there was no hostility, no open disapproval. It felt like acceptance, or at least the beginning of it. Later, as the party wound down and people began leaving, Noah and Wyatt found themselves alone by the corrals, watching the sunset paint the Montana sky in shades of orange and pink. "A year ago today, I got off a bus in Silver Creek," Noah said. "I was running from my old life, had no idea what I was getting into, was pretty sure I'd made a huge mistake. And now I know it was the best decision I've ever made." Noah turned to face Wyatt. "I found work I love, a place I belong, a community I'm part of, and I found you." Wyatt's hand came up to cup Noah's face, his thumb brushing over his cheekbone. "When I shook your hand that first day, when I took your hand to help you meet the horses, my heart knew. It knew you were going to change everything. I just didn't understand how much." "I love you," Noah said. "I love this life we've built. I love this ranch, this land, this stubborn, beautiful place we call home." "I love you too," Wyatt kissed him, soft and sweet. "You know what I think we should do?" "What?" "I think we should get married." Wyatt's voice was steady, certain. "Not because we need a piece of paper to prove anything, but because I want the world to know that you're mine and I'm yours, that this is forever, not just for now." Noah felt tears prick his eyes. "Are you proposing to me?" "I am. I don't have a ring. I should have planned this better, but I'm asking you, Noah Bennett, to marry me, to be my husband, my partner, my forever person." "Yes," Noah laughed through his tears. "Yes, absolutely yes." They kissed there by the corrals as the sun set over the Montana mountains, two men who'd found each other in the most unlikely of places, who'd built something real and lasting from a chance meeting and a handshake. The wedding took place on a perfect June day at Copper Ridge Ranch. It was small, just close friends and family, but it felt monumental. Frank walked Noah down the makeshift aisle. Margaret cried through the entire ceremony. The ranch hands served as groomsmen, proud to stand up for both Noah and Wyatt. The ceremony was held in the same spot where they'd first kissed, by the corrals where Wyatt had proposed. The officiant was the sheriff who'd gotten certified online specifically to marry them. "When the cowboy took my hand," Noah said during his vows, his voice thick with emotion, "my heart knew. It knew that everything in my life had been leading to that moment, to you, to this place, to this love." Wyatt's vows were simpler but no less powerful. "I'd given up on finding love, thought I'd spend my life alone, keeping everyone at arm's length. Then you showed up and you changed everything. You taught me that it's okay to need people, to let someone in, to build a life with someone instead of just existing beside them. I love you, Noah. I will love you until my last breath." They exchanged rings, simple silver bands engraved with the coordinates of Copper Ridge Ranch. When the sheriff pronounced them married, the crowd erupted in applause and cheers. The reception lasted well into the night. People danced in the barn, ate Margaret's incredible food, told stories, and made toasts. Some people cried happy tears this time, celebrating love instead of mourning its loss. Later, after the guests had left and the ranch had settled into quiet, Noah and Wyatt stood on the porch of their cottage, expanded now into a proper small house, their first real home together. "How does it feel?" Wyatt asked, his arm around Noah's waist, "being married?" "It feels right," Noah leaned into him. "It feels like the most natural thing in the world." They stood there in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge in the vast Montana sky. In the distance, cattle lowed softly. A horse whinnied from the barn. The wind whispered through the grassland. "Do you ever miss Portland?" Wyatt asked, "your old life?" Noah considered the question honestly. "Sometimes I miss certain things, good coffee shops, easy access to art galleries, the convenience of city living, but miss that life? No, not for a second." "No regrets?" "Not one." Noah turned in Wyatt's arms. "That bus ride to Silver Creek was the best decision I ever made. You taking my hand that first day changed everything." "My heart knew," Wyatt said softly. "From that very first touch, my heart knew you were going to be the most important person in my life." "Mine too," Noah kissed him. "Mine too." They went inside as the Montana night deepened around them, two men who'd found each other against all odds, who'd built a life together in a place that hadn't always been welcoming, who'd proven that love could thrive anywhere, even in the harsh beauty of ranch country. Noah had come to Montana running from heartbreak, searching for himself, hoping to heal. He'd found all that and more. He'd found purpose in his work, community in the ranch family, strength he never knew he had. But most importantly, he'd found Wyatt, found love in its truest, most profound form, the kind of love that weathers storms and celebrates victories, the kind that grows deeper with every shared moment, every challenge overcome together, every quiet evening spent just being together. As they lay in bed that night, married and content, Noah thought about that first day, about stepping off the bus into the Montana cold, uncertain and scared, about Wyatt's handshake, firm and warm, that had sent electricity through him even then. About how sometimes the best things in life come from taking risks, from saying yes to the unknown, from being brave enough to let someone take your hand and lead you toward a future you never imagined. When the cowboy took his hand, Noah's heart had known, and it had been right. This was home, this was love, this was everything. And it was more than enough. 3 years after that, Noah stood in the main barn of Copper Ridge Ranch, supervising the installation of new equipment for their expanding online business. At 33, he'd grown into his role as the ranch's business manager, helping transform Copper Ridge from a struggling family operation into a thriving, sustainable business that served as a model for other small ranches. "Looking good, boss," Carlos called out. Now the official assistant foreman, Carlos had become one of Noah and Wyatt's closest friends, a steady presence through all the changes. "Thanks, Wyatt's going to love this setup, make shipping so much easier." As if summoned by his name, Wyatt appeared in the barn doorway. At 41, he was even more handsome than when Noah had first met him, a few more lines around his eyes, a few silver strands in his dark hair, but the same warm smile, the same quiet strength. "There's my husband," Wyatt said, crossing the barn to kiss Noah briefly. "Frank wants us up at the house, says it's important." They walked to the main house hand in hand, a casual intimacy that had become second nature. Margaret met them at the door, beaming. Come in, we have news." Inside, Frank was sitting at the kitchen table with an official-looking woman in a business suit. "Noah, Wyatt, this is Jennifer Chen from the Montana Ranching Association." Noah felt Wyatt tense beside him at the last name. Chen was Wyatt's family name, one he rarely heard spoken aloud. Jennifer smiled warmly. "Don't worry, no relation, at least not close enough to matter. I'm here on official business." She pulled out a folder. "The Montana Ranching Association wants to feature Copper Ridge in our national campaign about sustainable, inclusive ranching practices. Your operation, the business model, the community involvement, the way you've modernized while maintaining tradition. It's exactly the story we want to tell." Additionally, Jennifer continued, we'd like to highlight you and Wyatt specifically, as an example of how the ranching community is evolving, becoming more inclusive, how love and partnership can thrive anywhere, even in places people might think are too traditional to change. Noah looked at Wyatt, seeing his own surprise reflected back. We'd be honored, Noah said. Right, Wyatt? Yeah, we would. Wyatt squeezed Noah's hand. This industry gave me a second chance when I needed it most. If our story can help make it more welcoming for others, that means something. After Jennifer left, promising to return with a photographer and writer, Frank and Margaret insisted on celebrating with champagne. 5 years ago, Frank said, raising his glass, I was struggling to keep this place afloat. Didn't think we'd make it another year. Then Noah showed up and everything changed. Not just the business, though that's been incredible, but the heart of this place. You two reminded us what really matters: family, love, building something that lasts. Copper Ridge gave me a home when I didn't have one, Wyatt said, his voice thick with emotion. And it gave me Noah. I owe this place everything. We owe each other, Noah corrected, looking at his husband. This place, these people, this life, we built it together. That evening, Noah and Wyatt rode out to their favorite spot on the ranch, a ridge overlooking the valley where they could see for miles in every direction. They often came here to think, to talk, to simply be together. 5 years, Wyatt said as they sat on the cold ground, sharing a blanket. 5 years since you got off that bus, completely out of your element, looking terrified and determined in equal measure. 5 years since you shook my hand and my heart recognized something my head couldn't name yet. Noah leaned against him. Best 5 years of my life. Mine too, Wyatt kissed the top of his head. I've been thinking about something. Yes. About expanding the house, adding a couple bedrooms. Wyatt's voice was carefully casual. In case we wanted to, start a family someday. Noah sat up to look at him. They'd talked about children abstractly, someday maybe, but this sounded more concrete. Are you saying? I'm saying I love our life, I love what we've built together, and I think I'd like to share it with kids someday, through adoption, fostering, however it works out. Wyatt took his hand. But only if you want that too, only if it feels right. Tears pricked Noah's eyes. I want that. I want to build a family with you, raise kids here on this ranch, teach them everything we've learned. I want all of it. They kissed there on the ridge as the sun set over the Montana mountains, two men who'd found each other 5 years ago, who'd built a life together one day at a time, who were ready to expand their family and their love. 7 years after Noah's arrival. The little girl in Noah's arms was 3 years old, with dark curly hair and curious brown eyes. Her name was Lily, and she joined their family 6 months ago through adoption, a foster placement that had become permanent when it became clear she belonged with them. Daddy Noah, can I feed the horses? Lily asked, tugging on his sleeve. Let's ask Daddy Wyatt, he's the horse expert. Wyatt appeared from the barn, now walking without any trace of his old limp. The surgery and recovery had been completely successful, though he remained careful about how he worked. Of course you can, little flower, come on. Watching Wyatt lift Lily onto his shoulders, hearing her delighted squeals as they headed to the barn, Noah felt overwhelming gratitude. For this life, for this family, for the courage he'd had 7 years ago to step off a bus into the unknown. Margaret appeared beside him, now in her 70s but still sharp and active. She's thriving here, both of you are such good fathers. We're learning as we go, Noah admitted. But yeah, she's amazing, she loves it here. And you, any regrets about leaving city life behind? Noah watched Wyatt and Lily disappear into the barn, heard Lily's laughter echoing back. He thought about his life now, the work he loved, the community he was part of, the husband he adored, the daughter who'd stolen his heart. Not a single one, Noah said. This is exactly where I'm supposed to be. That night, after Lily was in bed, Noah and Wyatt sat on their porch, a nightly ritual they'd maintained through all the changes. The house had indeed been expanded, with bedrooms for kids and space for the family they were building. 7 years, Noah mused. Sometimes it feels like forever, sometimes like yesterday. I remember that first handshake so clearly, Wyatt said. The way your hand felt in mine, the way my heart kicked up, I knew then, even if I couldn't admit it yet. When the cowboy took my hand, Noah said softly, my heart knew I'd found something worth fighting for, worth building a life around, worth staying for. No regrets about staying. Noah looked at his husband, the man who'd taken his hand 7 years ago, who'd shown him what real love looked like, who'd built a family and a life with him in this harsh, beautiful place. Only that I didn't decide to stay sooner. You stayed when it mattered, Wyatt said, that's what counts. They sat in comfortable silence, hands intertwined, watching the stars emerge in the vast Montana sky. Inside, their daughter slept peacefully. Around them, the ranch hummed with quiet life, cattle settling for the night, horses nickering softly, the wind whispering through the grassland. This was home, not because of the place, though Noah had grown to love Montana's fierce beauty, not because of the work, though he found deep satisfaction in what he did, but because of the people, the family, the love he'd found here. When Noah had boarded that bus 7 years ago, heartbroken and lost, he'd been running away from pain. He hadn't known he was running toward everything he'd ever needed. Toward Wyatt, whose hand had steadied him from that very first day. Toward a life of meaning and purpose and authentic connection. Toward home. And his heart had known. From that very first touch, his heart had recognized the truth that his head would take months to accept. He was exactly where he belonged. With Wyatt in Montana, building a life together one day at a time. That was the authentic truth of their story, not that it was easy, it wasn't. Not that they never struggled, they did. Not that everyone accepted them, some never would. But that they'd found each other, chosen each other, built something real and lasting together. That they'd taken a chance on love in an unlikely place and made it work through patience, dedication, and unwavering commitment to each other. When the cowboy took his hand, Noah's heart had known. And 7 years later, sitting on their porch with their daughter sleeping inside and their whole future stretching ahead, Noah knew his heart had been absolutely right. This was love, this was home, this was everything. And it was more than he'd ever dreamed possible.